of fiber from the one plant-based food that we really, really, really
Can't
like.
just train arms as much as you might want to. Can't just train arms.
It would look really weird, and you're probably going to hurt yourself at some point,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So, yeah, it would look really weird. Like, balance is very important. Like, as much as I personally want to make my chest muscles as big as possible, I don't enjoy back exercises, but I know I have to balance it
Yeah,
out.
totally. Totally. Variety is key. And I know that you personally try to get in around 30 different types of plants, and I want to dive into that in a second. But before I do, I want to kind of go back um, to the original concept that I presented in terms of the gut microbes and the population of them. Like you said, there's 38 trillion microbes, but instead of doing math based off of 38 trillion, I'm going to do simpler math based off of like if the total population in your gut was like 10 microbes. And let's say that there's 5 good microbes and 5 bad microbes. How do you think about reversing the population so it's like 8 good, 2 bad, or 9 good, 1 bad? Is it a matter of, okay, there's right now 5 good bacteria in there and they need to stay around, and so they need to be fed fiber so that they stay there. The other 5 need to be starved so that they die off. And then we need to add more in by eating probiotic foods. Is that kind of like the simple way to kind of think about it?
So, I think that generally the approach, this is a great question, by the way. Generally, the approach from my perspective is about feeding the ones that you currently have
Okay.
and empowering the good guys. Because what we see is that when you empower the good guys, they basically like command and control the space and they will suppress the bad guys.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, and it's conceptually similar. Sometimes like I think of how they're very similar to the way that we are in the real world, Nick. So, like if you have a decayed part of a city, right, that's like festering with crime, right? It's really hard to like turn the corner on that. You really have to like get law and order in there, get police involved,
Right.
bring in some opportunity for people to develop businesses and make money, right? Right. And so that like we're talking about a dysbiotic city and trying to transform that into something that's thriving and healthy.
Yeah.
And the same is kind of true in our gut, where, when you're in dysbiosis, it's like the gut microbiome, the balance is out of whack. You have too many bad guys. They're wreaking havoc. They're having too much fun. And the good guys, the few that are in there, they're powerless. They have no teeth. So, and we want to flip that balance and get it to the balance that you've described, which is if there's 10, we want 8 good guys,
Yeah.
right? And so, and you can see this. You can see this exemplified with antibiotic use. So, because think about, when do people get thrush, right? When do women get yeast infections, right? When do people get a C. diff infection that causes severe diarrhea and an inflamed colon? These are consequences of antibiotics because the antibiotic is actually wiping out all the microbes. And then whoever's still alive could be a yeast, that's the thrush or the yeast infection, could be the C. diff that hasn't been touched by the antibiotic. Whoever's left, they rise up, they grow, and they take over, and they raise hell,
Mm.
right? So now, um, to your second point, this is part of what made this a really great question because, is there a role for adding in new microbes? And the science, the data say yes. But I would argue that's a secondary piece
Okay.
because you have to start by first feeding the ones you already have. And in America right now, 95% of Americans are deficient in fiber. So you can add in new good guys and they'll starve too. Or you can take the ones you currently have, feed them, empower them, make them strong, and then you have a healthy ecosystem. And then you can start to sprinkle in some new good guys, and they'll be able to become a part of this as well. There was a study out of Stanford where they had people increase their fermented food intake for 8 weeks, and what they found, it was really cool, was that after 8 weeks of fermented food intake, they increased the diversity of their gut. So that means they added new species of microbes, and they reduced measures of inflammation, which basically, in a way, proves the principle behind my new book, Plant Powered Plus, which is that the gut and the immune system, they rise and fall together. So in other words, if you make the gut healthier, you will be suppressing the immune system in a good way, making it anti-inflammatory.
Gotcha. So just to stay on this kind of like good guys, bad guys, population analogy, what when people are deficient in their fiber intake and not taking nearly enough as maybe as they could, if we're saying there's 5 good guys, 5 bad guys, when we're not having enough fiber, is the way that through the same language that we're analogy that we're talking about it, when we're not having enough fiber, is it like we're not empowering the good guys, or we're disempowering the good guys and we're allowing those 5 bad guys to rule and have more say than we would like them to, and therefore they're causing inflammation? Or is it like we're not allowing the good guys to have anything to eat and therefore they're dying off? Like, what does that actually, how does that work if we're deficient in fiber?
Yeah, so there's a few facets to this. First of all, your diet is always displacing something else, right? You're getting your calories. In America, we're all getting our calories.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's one big pie, and it's a question of like, how are you cutting the pie? What's in there, right? So if you are reducing your fiber intake, there's a high probability that what you're doing is you're replacing it with something else, and that could be like an ultra processed food,
Right.
right? And those ultra processed foods, they're bioactive too. They have things that are going to impact your microbiome and empower and foster the growth of certain species. The problem is they're going to empower the growth of the species that you don't want, the ones that are inflammatory, the ones that are not healing your gut barrier. In fact, if anything, they're breaking it down and they're disrupting it,
Mm.
right? So, but on the flip side, we talked about the butyrate. So butyrate being the essential tool for repairing and restoring the gut barrier, that comes from fiber intake. But it's not just the butyrate itself, it's also the fact that the fiber is food for the healthy microbes that produce the butyrate. So you feed them, they procreate. When you feed them,
Right.
they'll make more.
Okay.
And then what you see is that actually by creating more, you're going to get actually more butyrate. So can I give you a quick example on that
Yeah,
end?
totally.
So uh, I actually am the founder of a supplement company called 38 Terra. And we have a product that's a prebiotic fiber. It's fiber resistant starch and polyphenols. And we put it to a test in a study, a microbiome simulation study. And we basically tracked how many short chain fatty acids people get over the course of 15 days using this product. And what was interesting, Nick, is that you give the same amount every single day, but the amount that's produced of short chain fatty acids
Mm.
increases.
Wow.
And the reason why it increases has nothing to do with increasing the amount of the supplement. The amount of the supplement was the same dose. So basically what's happening is the microbiome is changing. It's adapting to the fact that it's now being fed with the supplement. And as a result of that, it's producing more and more and more of these short chain fatty acids. So that adaptation yields like basically efficiency and results. You get even more from the same amount of
Yeah.
fiber.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Since we actually went there, this was going to be a topic that I wanted to cover anyway, the supplement topic. Obviously it depends on the supplement, but is fiber from real foods and then fiber in supplements similar? Is real foods much better than supplements? Does it just depend on the supplement? I guess, how would you rate the effectiveness of fiber supplements? Obviously you have one, so like you're going to be pro the supplement